All right, welcome everybody to this episode 71 of the Navigating Now virtual roundtable series, brought to you by Thoughtium. We go live every Thursday at 3 o'clock, bringing leaders and topics in business that matter most. And we've got a couple of great leaders at the table today who I'll introduce in a moment. But as always, a couple of housekeeping items. For those folks who are tuning in across our social media platforms, we want to thank you for joining. For those folks who have registered or are watching at thoughtium.com/live, welcome to the table. This is a live show, and each week we've brought some new and emerging leaders to some of the topics that we're all grappling with across brand and community and leading and developing people. And so the Navigating Now Network continues every week at 3 o'clock. You can find previous episodes as well as live episodes at thoughtium.com/live. And so let's get into it today. I'm actually really excited about not only today's guests, but particularly today's topic. You know, we've talked a lot over the course of the last 18 to 24 months about how brands and organizations are thriving and navigating through the pandemic, through, an ever-changing business landscape. And we've also talked a lot about how partnerships can be the guiding light or even a perpetuator of growth for specific brands and small businesses. And today we've got two leaders who know the power of partnership. And I'd like to welcome Jeana Anderson Cohen. She is from A Sweat Life based here in Chicago. I'd also love to welcome Erica Vivian from Nick's Ice Cream. And if you're thinking about how these two names or even brands fit together, that's what we're going to unpack today. It's quite a partnership. We also want to get to know Jeana and Erica a little bit in terms of their journey in both helping businesses grow as well as developing businesses of their own. So Jeana and Erica, thank you so much for joining today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, this is fun. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Yeah, I rarely get to sit in between two great leaders. So I'm going to make sure that the conversation or the table is really yours. I'm here to just kind of facilitate. But for those folks who are part of our community and tune in on a week-to-week basis, you all know that I absolutely love to start by a look back. And I want to ask both of you in leadership positions within your organizations today, think back to your earlier years, your childhood. What's maybe an example of success you've had or a challenge you've had as a childhood in your childhood that you can relate to what you're doing today? What's the earliest expression of your leadership? And Jeana, maybe we'll start with you.
Oh boy. Well, I think I don't want to say I was a late bloomer as a leader, but I definitely kind of felt like an outsider for a lot of my childhood, sort of trying to figure out where I belonged, which led to me almost being a sociologist in my own life, just trying to figure out people, what makes them tick, what makes them friends. So I've always been an observer of human behavior. I think that will play into the story of a sweat life. But early entrepreneurship was mowing my entire neighborhood's lawn and raising all of the children in my neighborhood. I found the earliest, most off the books ways I could make money as a kid. I really enjoyed being financially independent as a child. So that sort of followed me into adulthood. I like to set my own rules and make my own path.
I love that. And as somebody who also respectively both mowed lawns and shoveled driveways, there was never a better feeling than coming home and pulling out like a wad of singles or fives from your snowsuit. It was the best feeling in the world. It was that first feeling of like, the more I put in, the more I get out of this. And so, yeah, that's phenomenal. I love that. Thank you. Erica, how about you?
I think Jeana and I would have been friends as kids because mine is pretty similar. I'm one of 4 kids, the second in line, I guess. So I always would get my little brothers to help with neighborhood lemonade stands, like to the point where we built special stands for these lemonade sales.
Oh, wow.
And I also, they weren't my partners, they were my employees. So I took a cut of their money, that would come in from, their friends that came or whatever. But I think that also goes back to the food part of my career and like the business that I work in is anytime we had those entrepreneurial little moments as kids, it always had something to do with food. So yeah, I think that probably leads to how I got into the food business. And also my preschool teacher told my mom it wasn't bossy, it was leadership. So it's been that way for a lot of my life.
Are either of you a fan of or aware of the name Gary Vaynerchuk? He's of course, yes. You both almost sound like a bit of like his origins and roots in kind of the lemonade stands, the mowing lawns, and Erica, I think you took it to the next level of having like almost employees, because I know one of his fondest memories of a child is having lemonade stands, but his job was to go around and make sure that they were running properly and collect all of the money. So entrepreneurship definitely runs deep with both of you. So it's not a surprise that you're both in leadership positions today. And we want to get into that here in a moment, but we appreciate just sharing a little bit of, who you both are. I want to get into, the center of today's discussion, which is partnerships and how we can leverage partnerships to build and scale brand and businesses. But before that, I also really wanted to help our audience understand a little bit about, Jeana, what you all do at A Sweat Life, and also Erica, what you all are building at Nix, because I think they're two very unique stories. And so, Jeana, one of the things is I've gotten to know a little bit about your story, and of course, we've got some mutual connections. One of our very own, Rachel Guile, has a sister that works alongside of you. And so big shout out to Rachel and her sister, Kristen. What I've learned is that prior to starting A Sweat Life, you were building a community. And it was when you built that community that you decided then to build a company. And I just think that progression of building a community first is very rare and unique. And I'd love to have you tell us a little bit about the origins of A Sweat Life.
Yeah, I think one of the keys to A Sweat Life and its growth and its continued success is that we've just, as a team, stayed really curious. And that started with right out of college, way before A Sweat Life. I worked on the Obama campaign in 2008, which was and is impactful to A Sweat Life today. Because in that campaign work, I did field organizing, which is community organizing, which is talking to human beings as human beings, trying to understand their stories and find connections, which at its very root is friendship making, which every adult needs in their life. So walked away from that campaign knowing I didn't want to be in politics, but that the art of human connection was going to impact the rest of my life. I didn't know how. And I came back to Chicago and worked in PR and advertising. And I'd always thought that I wanted to do that for the rest of my life. PR and advertising would be my path. But I kind of got to this point that I look at as almost a universal truth of adulthood. Now, it's just what you do with it that's different. And that is that I reached a point where I went to my job that I thought was my dream job. And I kind of had this, is this it moment? Like, is this the rest of my life? Is this what I'm going to do? And I wasn't happy with it. So I went and sought joy. And for me, where I thought that I would find joy was in the fitness routine that I'd had and loved in college. And I thought that, go out, try some workouts, you're going to find it again. I did find joy, but it wasn't necessarily in the fitness itself. It was in the community that started growing around it. Meanwhile, while I'm trying workouts and writing about the ones that I loved, a couple of things were happening. It happened to coincide 9.5 years ago with the boom of studio fitness. And it also happened to coincide with people looking for the answers that I was writing about. They wanted to know what it was like to walk into a workout, what they should expect, what they should wear. Now, granted, we don't write about that content anymore, but that actually lent itself to us building a community because people were looking for what we were talking about. They would reach out and ask questions. And inevitably, people started asking us to help them try workouts because it was scary to walk into a studio alone. So we started taking over studios, filling them with people who were brand new to a workout and making it super okay for adults to be new at something and talk to each other and breaking the ice for them to make friends. So that was really the early community build for A Sweat Life, was those spaces, those places, and those people sweating together. But we've really grown beyond that into today, as Sweat Life's a full-fledged media company that helps women live better lives with wellness as the catalyst. And what we mean by better lives is really your whole health, your mental health, your well-being, your relationships. It's mind, body, soul, but we do not talk about diets. I find it important to add that caveat.
That's wonderful. Yeah, and what a progression. I'd love to just ask as a follow-up question, what about building this community and seeing how all of your community members were interacting, some of their preferences through the engagement that you had. What about all of this said, I need to start a media company?
Well, I mean, we started writing. I started writing about the workouts that I was loving, but really what I think lent itself to growing and building a true company that needed employees and taxes and all of that was what the community was telling us. So early on, if we listened, the community would often ask for what they needed to be happier, healthier, more connected. So those early events were a result of the community saying they didn't feel brave enough or they didn't feel like they could walk in and try a workout by themselves. Our ambassadorship, which I'm sure we'll get to, that came out of people saying literally the sentence, I want more from a Sweat Life, and having nothing else to add besides I want more. And now today, our ambassadors are giving us input into everything we do. So it really came out of building the media company, came out of listening, out of, I have a journalism degree and I wanted to use it. I love the written word. Kristen on our team has helped us build out the content and content strategy over the years too. But it's been an act of staying curious, listening to the community and giving people what they need.
I love that. And at the center of your business still remains this incredible community. We're going to get back to that in a second, but a big congratulations for building a business and keeping community at the center. I know sometimes in the spirit of, generating opportunity and even revenue for your business, you can lose sight of the core of what's really driving it, which ultimately are the people that make up the Sweat Life community. So congrats on that, and more on your business here in a moment. But I definitely want to bring Erica into the discussion. And this is I just love this because now we know a lot about a Sweat Life. We know that it's, this emerging media company, this community building presence, focused on, wellness and fitness, but not diets, which I love. Let's bring in Erica now from Nick's Ice Creams. And for someone like myself, who prior to doing a little bit of research on Nick's and talking to you, Erica, I knew nothing about it. So when I see it, I think, an ice cream company. There's a lot of those out there. So tell us a little bit about Nick's, because what I understand is that you all have an extremely unique approach and value proposition that you offer, your community.
Yeah, definitely. So Nick's actually was started. Nick is a real person, by the way. His name is Nick Lothman. He is one of the most passionate founders I've ever worked with or for. And he actually started Nick's in Sweden. He's Swedish. He born and raised there. And it actually came from him being diagnosed as pre-diabetic, and his mom, who he will tell anyone that he's a devoted mama's boy. She was diagnosed as diabetic. And so he kind of knew, as mama's boy, he knows his mom knows she's not going to change her eating habits. So he decided, maybe I'm going to make something that she's still going to love, that's not going to negatively affect her with this new diagnosis. And so that really started a journey of diving into what foods are out there, what people can eat. And he just realized, oh my gosh, sugar is in everything. Everything. I don't know if people know this, but the first time I realized how much sugar is in a jar of spaghetti sauce, I don't think I had spaghetti for a long time. We don't make spaghetti sauce, but it's in everything. And so he started with the things that his mom loved, which were chocolate bars and snack bars and things like that. So back in 2017 was when he launched Nick's, which looked very different than it does now. And he launched it in Sweden with those types of products. And then his attention was brought to the ice cream, the specifically better for you ice cream in the US, and what was being offered. And he just realized, along with some of the other food scientists at Nick's that, wow, we can do a way better job of this. People can eat much tastier ice cream and still get the same low calories, low sugar as what's being offered. And so in 2019, he came over and started really developing some new ice creams and things like that. And we launched in most stores. We had like 300 stores in the US in 2019 in the fall. And then our big launch happened in March of 2020, which was a very eventful month for the world. So we very quickly had to pivot a lot of our business tactics that we had been planning for the year. We had a whole ice cream truck tour planned for summer of 2020 that got scrapped very quickly. And we launched our website, I think, like 8 months early, all kinds of things that had to be adjusted very quickly. But since then, we have continued to grow. We're now in about 7,000 stores nationwide. And by the summer, that'll be about 13,000. So we're very excited for all of that. And A Sweat Life was one of those partners back in kind of the dark times of March and April of 2020 that we found that really helped us grow a community where before we were planning on all types of in-person events, demos, things like that to drive trial of our brand new product, which has some kind of silly names. We really lean into our Swedishness. So, stuff is spelled weird, and we use a little language that our copywriter made called Swinglish. And so without having real people to talk about that, we were a little worried, but we found partners, a huge partner with A Sweat Life to kind of introduce ourselves through a number of different virtual events. And now we do everything with them. Like, we've done consumer research sessions with their ambassadors. So earlier Jeana said, our ambassadors tell us how to change and grow in every aspect of our business. I'm kind of like, they've kind of done that for us as well. So a huge community and partner that we've found with A Sweat Life.
That's incredible. And Erica, thanks so much for the context and the details. What really sticks out about, the Nick's story is that you all essentially decided to, or were planning on launching kind of the next phase of your business at the doorstep of the pandemic. And I will tell you, there are a few leaders out there that are part of the Navigating Now community that, much like Nick's, had a lot of plans in March of 2020 and that had to completely pivot. And I'm just so inspired by the ingenuity and, of course, the resilience of brands who are able to do that. So let's talk a little bit about that. Like, what were, some of the, let's kind of drill into, like, what were some of the specific challenges that maybe outside of the obvious that you all were dealing with here at the very beginning of the pandemic? Like, the one that stuck out to me that I just think is so fascinating is that even the copy, the names of your products almost relied on people saying them face to face in a food truck or in a park or things of that nature. And now everything's virtual. And so it's up for people's interpretation. Like, what were some of the other nuances or challenges that you all immediately were like, oh man, we've got to accommodate this?
Yeah, well, the big one that sticks out is fall of 2019, we didn't have a website. We didn't have socials. We didn't have any of that. And we were, that came before the pandemic hit, but
right.
It was like, here's information about our product, but there was no sales aspect to it, none of that. And we were planning for that to happen fall, winter 2020. But when we started hearing more news about the pandemic happening in other parts of the world, our development team really started looking at, okay, how can we make this happen a little faster? Because it's looking like we're going to have distribution in all these grocery stores, and we don't know if people are going to be able to even get to the grocery stores. So that was a huge part of the business that really got pushed up. So that changed a lot of plans. You have to move around different resources. A big resource just being our development team's time, pushing that up, pushing other projects further down, and finding a partner. I mean, ice cream's not the easiest thing to ship, pretty challenging actually. And so we had to really scramble to find the right partner who could help us distribute online orders. We had to get our Shopify set up, all of that. And that was a huge, I don't know how many times I shared like a GIF of Ross with the couch saying pivot.
Pivot, yeah.
Pivot. But that was kind of like the motto of business. And that was, I mean, getting that off the ground in time. I think we launched in April of 2020, our online business. That was huge for us because that unlocked not just people being able to purchase online, but then we could send samples way more easily than we would have been able to, which allowed us, once we found Jeana and her team and her ambassadors, then we could easily send product samples to them. So it opened up new ways to drive trial for us, whereas before we wouldn't have been able to do that. So I think having a little bit of foresight in like January, February 2020 and listening to what was going on, and then the team adjusting and getting that up and running was, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't want to think about what would have happened.
Yeah, I mean,
had we not been able to do that. So
it's no small feat. And I continue, again, we're in the consulting business. It's a client services business. We don't have products, but I will tell you, I am, and particularly our team have been so inspired by F&B, CPG, small businesses who have products that need to get out there, and how quickly you all were able to make adjustments at the beginning of the pandemic. Before we get into the meat of this discussion, which is essentially the intersection of Jeana and Erica, and your two businesses supporting each other through this partnership, I want to ask Erica, and you don't have to back it up with numbers or anything like that, but I'm fascinated with like the consumer behavior and how that shifted in ice cream over the course of the last 24 months. Because again, someone completely naive, I'm thinking the quicker you can, it's March, April of 2020, the quicker you can start shipping ice cream, like I've got to imagine the demand was like skyrocketing, right? With like everybody at home and not wanting to go to the grocery store. How has the consumer behavior or even like the market dynamic shifted over the last 24 months?
Yeah, that's a great question. So ice cream in general is mostly like a comfort food. And honestly, since we had our big launch moment in March of 2020, we've introduced other products in other like categories as well. But just talking about ice cream, I think everyone was very worried because we didn't know how any consumer behavior on it, like for any product, would have changed. Like this was unprecedented, which is, I think, should be the the unofficial word for 2020. So we really didn't know, but I think ice cream being a comfort food and people being at home and being scared and just not understanding what was going on, and there was so much uncertainty, it actually positioned our product, which is a better for you ice cream that is truly delicious. And I've worked at other ice cream companies and can say like the creaminess and mouthfeel and all of that is definitely comparable and there. And so having an ice cream that you could eat a whole pint and not feel terrible, like physically or mentally, was hugely helpful for people. And that was something that personally, even during the time of the beginning of the pandemic, it was like, well, at least people are eating this and feeling good. And we would get people writing in and saying, not only have I not been able to eat ice cream for however long because I'm diabetic, but now I can eat this ice cream and feel good about it. And it like gives me a little bit of comfort in this scary time. Yeah. So I guess over the past 24 months, like that's just looking at right at the beginning of the pandemic, we've seen that need, or we've seen that pocket of the ice cream market, the better for you pocket, grow and expand. Even though there was like a pretty solid market there already, we've seen people continue to come back and want more flavors and want more variety, without, sacrificing the deliciousness of it, which I think our product would have done super well anytime. But the fact that people were reaching for ice cream already and then they had an option that wasn't 1,000 calories for the pint, it ended up being something that I think was helpful to have out there at that time.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, what a fascinating market. I'm thinking about really only my doorman and my credit card know how many pints of ice cream were delivered to my apartment through DoorDash between the months of February 2020 and February 2021. So clearly huge market demand. Clearly you've got an incredible product and you were really looking to expand. Jeana, tell us maybe a little bit about how the relationship with your community or the dynamics of your community were shifting through the pandemic. And then tell us also how A Sweat Life and Knix came together and what were some of those initial conversations?
What's delightful is that these two questions are actually, the answer is the same, because the solution we came up with for Knix ended up being the shift.
Yeah.
So we actually ended up being reached out to by Knix or someone who was working with Knix about the Better For You ice cream brand. We had actually, to take a step back, A Sweat Life had made a significant amount of our revenue previous to the pandemic off of events and event sponsorship. So obviously all of that was shifting. And just to give a temperature check of where we were with the business, April, we had planned to have a physical pop-up in April of 2020, I should say, in the Bucktown neighborhood. We'd had sponsorships sold. We'd signed a lease on a pop-up spot. And so we were in a bit of a panic, a question mark of what's next. So we had to go through a big exercise of shifting really, really quickly as we moved from March to April. And luckily, the pop-up had lent itself to us at A Sweat Life having a schedule of workouts and workshops that were already planned for the month of April that we simply pivoted into digital, into virtual. And so by the time we met Knix, we'd had a weekly virtual schedule that was ongoing and rolling and was just built around making sure that our audience, that our ambassadors had what they needed to feel sane, healthy, and connected during, let's just call it, these uncertain times. And so like that was sort of the baseline of where we were as a business. We had finally kind of stepped into being a fully digital media company by stepping out of events, which was an excellent pivot for us to make, although I wish we didn't have to make it the way we had to make it. But we were left with kind of two key problems in that pivot. And one of those was that the brands that we'd worked with were really used to sampling and seeding, driving trial at the events that we were hosting. And that was gone. And the other one was that the ambassadors in our network were really used to being swagged out. We love treating the ambassadors to unique experiences, making them feel special, giving them whatever we can get our hands on. And because the time and place of these events had been taken away, we didn't have those connections between those two things anymore. When we actually talked to Knix the first time, that was the first time that we put together, oh, you can ship the ambassadors products. You can see the ambassadors. You can help sample the ambassadors, thus providing a perk for them, a great way for you to find out what people think of it, see it on social media if they love it. So actually our first engagement was, I think, Erica, correct me if I'm wrong here, we shipped boxes of 6 pints to 100 ambassadors and I think 150 trainers in Chicago for your launch.
Mm-hmm. I think it was, I can't remember if the very first time we actually shipped boxes or not, because I'm trying to think if we had it together enough back then to do that. But I know that at that time we had just recently launched in Jewel and we did have physical coupons. So I want to say we actually shipped them coupons, which then they could use. But I know we've done both.
Yeah,
definitely since then. So, but I can't remember that very first time what we had done.
I will tell you, the delight was off the charts. The first time people got boxes of ice cream shipped to their door, it was photos everywhere, messages from ambassadors, because it was just like Erica's pointing to, it's something people craved, the comfort of this food, first of all. And why shouldn't we be given that. Like we're going through all of this together. We should have a treat together. So that was kind of the impetus in the very first time we did that at A Sweat Life. Now we're doing that program more and more. But it actually started something really special for us and kicked off the relationship with Knix.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. So we can now start to see the intersection here and the synergy on how a network, a broad community like A Sweat Life can really help a brand like Knix at a real pivot point. I want to dive into the concept of partnerships because we have a lot of folks in the business community that tune in. They're either entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, solopreneurs, and they're interested in potentially leveraging partnerships to help perpetuate their brand and even their business. As I think about it, there's a couple of key components to this story here. And at the heart of this partnership are the ambassadors, are the folks that essentially, take, the Knix ice cream and the brand, and they then perpetuate it. So Jeana, tell us a little bit about the ambassador network. I mean, it's something that I'm not super familiar with, but I got to tell you, like even our consulting services, I would love to then go and take to a rogue group of folks that can go and spread it and help others understand what we do here at Thoughtium. So tell us how your ambassadors work with a brand and really light up a brand like Knix.
Well, I think first, it's important to understand that the ambassadors exist as a community first and foremost. So they are connecting with one another. They're connecting with us. They share their insights with us. If they like something, they tell us. If they don't like something, they tell us. And we are taking in that feedback constantly, shifting and changing and moving and redirecting the ship based on what they're saying. Would you like to know the history of the ambassadors? Because I think that's important also to the story.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we started getting inquiries for the I want more from A Sweat Life, the only thing we had to offer them was you can write for us. And when we heard no, I want something else, we scratched our heads and decided to build a plane in the air. So we put a form up on asweatlife.com that essentially asked 3 questions. 2 related to metadata, 1 related to the actual thing we needed to know. So it was name, email address, and what would it take for you to live a better life? So we took the answer to that question and built a program for that first year. We accepted, there were, I think that first year, a couple hundred applicants. And we took those applications and we drilled it down to 25. And we thought it was really important that first year to have everyone, we didn't know where it would go, but we wanted everyone to fit into a gym so that we could work out together and hold workshops after those workouts. So after that first year, this group got really close. I'm talking like people have been in each other's weddings. They cheer each other on at marathons. They're having dinner on Friday nights. We heard from a few of those ambassadors that first year was free, by the way. We heard from a few of those ambassadors that they wanted to pay for the program, that they thought it was so valuable. So we said, thank you. You don't have to. So the first year, we sort of grandfathered them into having a free membership for the rest of their life. But we did make it a paid program moving forward based on the insight that they provided to us, because they thought what we created was so valuable, they wanted to pay for it. So flash forward to today, there are about 1,000 of them in 30-ish states. And what we're constantly doing is creating value for them. So Kelly on our team, her whole job is to program, to manage the community of the ambassadors, ensuring that they are happy, taken care of, and connected with one another. So every month they have a studio of the month that's virtual and in person. And they have custom workshops. We're actually hosting one tonight with an author, Emily Winter. You should buy her book. Just ensuring, again, that they have values. So with that as the level set, when we work with a brand, we want it to feel really organic for the ambassadors, and we want them to be able to opt in and opt out. So we are always considering our values as we partner with brands. So we don't partner with brands that don't fit our values, first and foremost. And second, when we partner with a brand, we always create a stipulation. So it's opt into this program if you want a better for you ice cream in your life, whatever it may be, something simple. And then we allow people to opt into the program, and they know that by opting in, if they love the product, we ask that they, talk about it. And then if they don't love the product, how we keep it organic, how we keep it authentic. If they don't love the product, they have a way out. We ask that they fill out a survey, let us know why. And then we share that with the brand so that they can take those insights and act on them, which makes the program really special because we're not creating robots that are out there pushing a shared and unified message.
Yeah. And it sounds like the size of your ambassador network is really key. The fact that it's not this overwhelming database of hundreds of thousands of folks. I love the idea of and the fact that your ambassador network is a community in itself first. And so, you take away the interaction that they have with some of these brands, and they're still working out together and socializing and going to weddings and things of that nature. And that it sounds like that's really the value in the ambassador network. And that makes then the interaction with brands like NYX even more meaningful and organic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's awesome. So thank you so much for a little bit of that 101 on like the ambassador network. I think we all have maybe different ideas of what an ambassador network does. And it sounds like you have a really, really unique one, which, Erica is not surprising then why, NYX was excited to bring a sweat life to your brand. And, as we talk about this partnership, another key component to this is really the social and the digital aspect of marketing NYX. And it sounds like, again, with the pandemic, that was a real challenge for you to go more digital first. So tell us a little bit about, how you moved very quickly, or maybe not, into the social and digital space, and what were some of the things that you were focused on and have been focused on, and maybe even some of the things you're looking forward to when it comes to, digital and social for a brand like NYX.
Sure. Yeah. So in March of 2020 and like April and the months that followed, our main concern was, how are we going to drive trial? Like, we had all these demos scheduled at stores across the country that then were very quickly canceled. And for a brand new brand, especially something like ice cream, we know just from consumer behavior that people are really flavor specific and a little wary of newer brands on the freezer shelf at their local store. So we were really concerned. And one of the ways that we worked out like a ton of different ways, how can we drive trial? One way that we did using digital was actually a lot of groceries, especially at that time, were just starting to launch their apps, like, just on your phone, coupon apps, things like that. And so we started doing digital trial, where that was essentially like a free coupon that you could redeem on your phone, which got very expensive very quickly. And another way that we started driving trial was we got the idea to reach out to fitness instructors and start sponsoring fitness classes that they would be hosting virtually. And that's how we found a sweat life. But we did that in a couple key markets, Chicago being one, Portland being another. And so this was very, very scrappy, but we had a small network of instructors in a couple cities where, they were just local instructors from all kinds of different studios, or even just like on their own trainers that we found on Instagram. And, we looked for these instructors just based on the type of content they were putting out. Were they actually like instructors, or are they someone who's super into fitness? But we wanted to serve two purposes at once. One, these instructors all of a sudden didn't have a source of income, so we wanted to give that back to them. And two, all of their students all of a sudden didn't have classes. So we wanted to create a way to serve both of those purposes again and get that income back to them, while also helping people work out again, which all kind of aligned with our brand mission of just living a better lifestyle, even in the midst of a very scary pandemic. And then just, very organically sponsoring it, saying like, this is provided by NYX, this is free to you. And that really just included like the instructors wearing a NYX t-shirt and like talking about our ice cream for 2 minutes at the beginning of each class. And then that evolved into a bunch of different events that we would do with Jeana and the team at A Sweat Life. I think we did a couple cooking classes where they did different stuff with, Nix as a dessert. We continued to do a couple fitness classes. I remember clearing out my living room and doing, I think it was like a dance class. My husband came out and he's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm working out, leave me alone." So, it was all kinds of fun, creative ways that we still wanted to like see people face to face and get that chance to talk about our very, very new product and brand, honestly, not just the new product, but brand new brand as well. And so that was a huge, huge way that we found that. And since then it's morphed. We've leaned into different types of events, and with Jeana and the ambassadors at A Sweat Life, we've done like different things where we've done giveaways, we've done user generated content, like campaigns where, they'll post stuff, and that's really helpful because our creative team doesn't have as much access to a studio as they did pre-COVID, and all kinds of things where that community, and they're like true, I don't know the right word, but they're so genuine that all of it is super organic, super real, and very, very helpful for us to continue growing as a brand, especially as we start launching new products and going into new spaces in the US market.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an interesting thing to think about in terms of getting product out in the community, getting product out in the marketplace. And, to me, it just feels like such a far cry from like a sample station at Whole Foods or Jewel, right?
Yeah, it's so hard to imagine that now. Like,
right.
I think Costco does it every once in a while, and even then I'm like,
well, I hope Costco never stops, because I still have, embarrassingly, I still have a Costco membership for that exact reason.
I'm right there with you.
And maybe this is a good question for both of you, as you think about brand development, marketing, promotions. There's this sense that the pandemic, caused us all to kind of stop and get really creative and make the pivots, right? And we were focused on what can we do in the short term that's creative and different and unique. And I think some of the more meaningful discussions we're having today, now 2 years in, is, how has this fundamentally shifted the way that we bring products to market and get products out in the community? And your partnership is such a great example of this isn't something that, Sweat Life just came and said, "Hey, we're going to help you through the next few months." Like, this is a long-term partnership that is really rooted in, regardless of the pandemic environment we're in or not, it's rooted in community and bringing products to the community in unique ways. So the question here is, what do we feel like is we're never going to see again in terms of traditional marketing and promotions? And what are some of the things that we've learned over the course of the last 2 years that we feel like are not just a stopgap, they are here to stay?
Boy, Erica, you want to go first or second?
I'll go second. I'm still thinking that's a hard question.
I mean, it is hard, but I've kind of learned over the past 2 years never to say never, because we have no idea what will come. I do think that we've sort of learned the unpredictability of consumer behavior. We knew it before. We knew that consumer behavior wasn't necessarily logical. I'm lumping myself into that. I say one thing and do another when faced with the choice. But I think what we're seeing I can speak to health and wellness consumer. I can speak to how people are consuming fitness, but I think a couple things are true when it comes to partnership. We're never not going to be thinking about goals. I think that's one thing that's always important to us at A Sweat Life whenever we are talking to a partner, but became increasingly important during the pandemic, because before that it was easy to say, like, we're hosting this thing, here's how you can get involved, period. And since we always lead with, what do you need? When it comes to our community, when it comes to our partners, it's always, what do you need? What are your goals? And then we can find ways to work with the things we're already doing or to create something new and unique. But I don't think that can or should ever leave partnership marketing, because we have to stay super focused on what we need to do to get the job done, because we don't know when the world's going to change next.
That is such a great answer. I just love that. And I think even just as a marketer and a brand developer myself, the acknowledgement that things will continue to change is one thing, but also like the never say never mentality, right? Like we're constantly trying to kind of rewrite the script, but at the end of the day, like you can kind of throw the script out the window. Erica, how about you? What's what's here to stay, and maybe what are some of the things that you might not see coming from like a Knix marketing program or a Knix marketing strategy in the future?
Yeah, I think kind of building off of Jeana's answer, one thing, not that really any brand would put all their eggs in one basket, but you would see before COVID, like more of a focus on a certain type of marketing. Yeah. And I think one thing we've really learned is like, let's constantly try every type of everything we can do, because consumer behavior now more than ever is changing so quickly that you can learn what sticks, but then what sticks a couple months down the road won't be the same thing. So I think that's one thing is we will at Knix especially we'll never stop surprising people with how we're reaching them. And we are honestly at the core of our business very innovative with our products, but I'd like to think that we are that way with our marketing and our strategy as well. So that's something that we'll just continue. We'll always be looking for the new genuine way to reach our consumers. And something that I think that's the thing that's like here to stay. We've always said like test and learn, but that is, I don't think.
Yeah,
well, more than ever, that's the motto.
Yep. Yeah. As brands, we will never be a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
You know,
you can't be. I really don't think you can.
And no brand can. And I'll say, as somebody who's paid really close attention to just the evolution of our community here at Thoughtium, one of the things that really sticks out that I think is here forever is not just the importance of community, but how local our communities have become. We refer to our 6-block radius here at Thoughtium in that the last 2 years, we're a group of 10 or 15 consultants that typically would spend at least a couple weeks away, traveling, doing client work, business development, things of that nature. And yes, a lot of our work then became virtual first and remote, but our relationships got a lot more local. And all of a sudden you started to see kind of the blurring of the lines of like even just the 6 blocks that you lived in and those conversations that you were having. And we've gotten really close with small business owners here in Chicago, entrepreneurs that are just in our immediate radius that have something to say, that want to get together, that want to connect. And I can imagine when you put a really good product in the center of that community, it's just going to go like gangbusters. And I think we're seeing more and more of that at the local level. So that's one of the biggest lessons for us is the importance of community, but also just the importance of investing in your community, no matter how small it is, because it will pay dividends for years and years to come. So really, really appreciate this discussion, man. I mean, some of these episodes go so quickly, and particularly talking to you both, like I can tell that you are both practitioners in your craft. I can tell that you both really feel very passionate about bringing people together, developing brands in very unique and organic ways. And I want to congratulate you both for the success and the amazing partnership between A Sweat Life and Knix. It's just a fascinating story, and we were so glad and proud to bring it to our community today. Thank you so much. Before we let you go, I want to do a little bit of a lightning round, because in the spirit of maybe consumer behavior and market research, I want to get to know you guys a little bit better. And then as you share, also let us know how folks can find you, how we can tap into A Sweat Life and find Knix. So Jeana, we'll start with you. Give us something you're geeking out about today, whether it's a show or a recipe or even a fitness class, and tell us how we can find you all at A Sweat Life.
Oh, okay. So my husband and I actually listen to the same, or have been trying to listen to the same audiobooks at the same time. So we just listened to Seth Rogen's Yearbook. which is delightful and hilarious. He's a great writer. I mean, we all knew he was a great writer if you care about comedy, but he also he writes like a heartfelt story too about his grandma and grandpa. So that's something I'm geeking out about now. If you see me laughing and walking on the sidewalk, that's why. And finding a sweat life is easy. We're at asweatlife.com, and a sweat life across all of your social channels.
Awesome.
Yeah. I also want to say thank you to the ambassadors, by the way. I know we talked a lot about the ambassadors and the ambassadorship. Thank you to always lending your ideas and thoughts to the growth and change of a sweat life.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jeana. And again, congratulations on the success and the growth. I hope to see you in and around Chicago, whether you're tuned into an audiobook or not. I'll stop and say hello. So thanks again for joining. Erica, how about you? How can, tell us something that you're geeking out about, and how can people find Nix?
Yeah, so I have been my family is big into cooking, and I've been someone who has been, I will use my brother's New York Times recipe login very often, but I was actually gifted one by him more recently so that I don't have to use his anymore, which has been very fun to be able to like go and explore stuff. So taking my husband and I are taking our cooking to new heights these days, which is exciting and fun. I thought I was a good cook, and I'm learning that there's always room to grow. So that's been very fun. And then Nix is also very easy to find. We're just at nix.com. You can find all of our products available for purchase to be shipped direct to you anywhere in the contiguous US. So sorry, Alaska and Hawaii, we can't quite get to you yet, but hopefully soon. And then you can also find a wide variety of our products, including new bars and other things that will soon be launching at your local grocery. And we have a store locator on our website. You can just plug in your zip code and find a Nix pint or bar or anything else near you. Easy peasy. So
yeah. I love that. I will definitely give you all a try. Erica, thank you so much for coming to the table, sharing a little bit of your story. And again, Jeana and Erica, huge congrats on the success. Big thank you from our entire community for the discussion today. As we close out, I want to remind everybody that today's episode, as well as future scheduled episodes, are at thoughtium.com/live. We go live every week, Thursday at 3 o'clock. We particularly want to thank our LinkedIn community. We have a lot of folks that stop by our LinkedIn Live. We're so grateful to be able to tell this story on that platform on a week-by-week basis. We also want to remind folks that we have some interesting opportunities for folks to learn and grow in topics like this and others. If you are interested in some of our open cohort learning experiences, you can check us out at thoughtium.com/accelerator. We have a very unique learning accelerator kicking off in February, and we would love to see some of our learning professionals join us in that experience. Next week, we are so excited and thrilled to bring Darren Schwartz to the table. Darren is a longtime member of our Navigating Now community. Jeana, if you haven't met Darren, I'm going to introduce you guys because I feel like you guys absolutely hit it up. Okay, good. Yeah, of course you do. She is just phenomenal. She is an absolute force and energy. She brings so much excitement, love, growth mindset to her business, and has brought some of it to ours as well too. And so Darren's going to be coming in. She's really at this really amazing inflection point in her business where, she's really about to double down on designing and delivering great experiences. And so the founder of the Space Between Yoga, based here in Chicago, Darren Schwartz, will be joining us next week. That'll be a great episode. And our very own Amanda Lobo will be hosting that episode. Two best friends and also two entrepreneurs at the table. And I'm super excited to be a participant in that discussion. So thank you all for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you all next week. And we hope you all have a wonderful rest of the week and a great week.